Hello and welcome to Art School Live. My name is Mandy Tice. I am guest hosting this week while Eric is away at his winter art escape in Florida. Today, my guest is a very special guest and a dear friend of mine, Ricky Mujica. Ricky, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi, Mandy. It's good to see you.
It's lovely seeing you too. And what are you going to teach us today, Ricky?
So, um, I want to teach a technique for mixing color, for finding the colors that you want, for matching colors, right? And I'm on a quest to blow up the warm, cool paradigm.
Ooh, I can't wait to learn all about that with you. All right, let's get the show started.
Okay.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes.
Hello, you may have noticed I am not actually Eric Rhodes. My name is Mandy Tice, and I am guest hosting for Eric while he's away this week. Today, we have a very special guest, Ricky Mujica, who's going to teach us about color and challenge us about the warm, cool paradigm. So, Ricky, take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a good weekend or a good week, and let's get started. I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to go a little bit fast. Let me start by showing everybody something. Let me show you guys. I want to. There we go. Right here we have cerulean blue and ultramarine blue. And every time I teach a workshop, I start the workshop by asking which one of these is the warm blue, right? Is it the cerulean blue and the ultramarine blue? And every time 50% will say cerulean blue, 50% will say ultramarine blue. Neither of them are wrong. Uh, they both can be the warm blue. They both can be the cool blue. And that's the problem that I find with warm and cool, right? If you see the cerulean blue as a greenish blue, you're going to see that as the cool blue. If you see it as a yellowish blue, a blue that has a yellow overtone or a cast, then you're going to see it as the warm blue. If you look at the ultramarine blue, and if you see it as a blue that has a reddish cast, a reddish blue, you're going to see it as warm. If you see it as a purpley blue, you're going to see it as cool. And therein lies the problem with warm cool. Does that make sense, Mandy? Right?
I have not heard this theory before, and I confess I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Are you saying that different people see colors different ways?
Well, they see it, they interpret it different, right? Warm cool is useful, but it's like a sledgehammer trying to drive in a nail, right? What does it mean if I say this I have to make it warmer? Do you have yellow? Do you have red? It's not actionable, right? However, we can be more fine grained. Let me show you that picture again, and I want everybody to look at it, right? This time, right? I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask you, right? Mandy, which is the red or blue?
I mean, I would argue that the ultramarine blue is
Yeah,
the blue.
I get 100%. I have yet to find somebody that thinks the cerulean blue is the yellow or blue. If I say which is the green or blue,
Uh,
right? Or
yeah.
I have yet to find anybody at any workshop I've ever taught think that the ultramarine blue is the greener blue. So if I think of the ultramarine blue as a redder blue, it has a redder cast, it's actionable, right? Because if I'm mixing a color and I decide this color is redder than that one,
Mhm.
right? I add red. It's simple as that, right?
Well,
You
you're
can't.
getting blown up in the chat here. Lots of people have comments, and I'd like to read a few to you. So Ellen R is saying ultramarine looks cool to me, and I know it's considered the warm one, and I see it cerulean as warmer. So I appreciate hearing that it's okay. And there's a lot of people cheering her on in the chat as well.
Oh, good. Yeah. So many people see ultramarine. I guarantee, I promise you, when I do a workshop, I have people raise their hand. 50% of the people always, without fail, think ultramarine blue is the cool one. So that's the problem with warm and cool, right? You know, is a brilliant yellow warmer than a grayed out red, right? On the spectrum, red is supposed to be warmer, but doesn't feel that way, right? So
Interesting.
that's what I want to start by blowing up. I want to blow up that it's useful. It can be useful, the warm, cool, right? But if we think of things as, is it redder? Is it yellower? Is it bluer? It's simple. It's actionable, right? And we can add to that. Is it oranger? Is it greener? Or is it violet? It's actionable. You can do it. If I decide that my nose is redder than my forehead, and I mix the color, what do? I add red. If I add, which is warmer? It's debatable whether my nose is warmer than my forehead, which is yellower, right? This is redder. But if I want to make the difference between this has more yellow, this is more red. Does that make sense? And so you know what to add, you know what to do.
I like this idea of being more specific in what you're saying, right? Like in which colors the way leaning instead of which temperatures is
That's
something.
right. The temperature, it can be problematic, right? And I could show you. I mean, I had to shorten it, but I shorten you. I can show you tons and tons of situations where I'll hold up an orange and I'll hold up a red and ask which is the warmer and which is the cooler. It's all right. So let's continue for a second, right? We're continuing on this, right? Because this, in order to mix color, this is an important thing to see, to break away, so that we can identify what we're looking at, right? So, yeah. First, let me start now. Please bear with me, everybody. I know everybody here, you're all professional artists, or you've been all working for a long time. And so what I'm going to say here is very, very basic. But for our purposes, for mixing, I just want to go over it, um, just so that we can be on the same page, right? Right. So color is three things, right? Without those three things, it's not a color, right? You can't just say red, right? What kind of red? Is it a light red, a dark red, right? So we need three components to make color. The first one is hue, right? And that's basically the wavelength of the color and the name that we give the wavelength of the color, right? That's the hue is irrespective of value or saturation, right? Hue, yellow, red, blue, right? The second component, right, of color is value, how light and how dark a color is, right? So all of these, you see the color, the swatch on top is the same value as the swatch on the bottom, right? So value, how light or how dark a color is. The third important color thing is what a lot of the people that like the older language say chroma. I like to say saturation because that's what all the art programs, art software uses. That's what we talk about now. But, it's interchangeable with chroma, luminous, brilliancy, you know, and that's how gray or how brilliant the color is, right? So if you squint your eyes at this, you can see these are all the same value. They're all a type of red, right? But as you go to the left, it's way more prismatic. And as you go to the right, it's much grayer, right? So that's where we start. If we take all those things in mind, we can narrow the colors down into color families. And just about everything out there, we can narrow down into three color families. Reds, and you can see the top row they're all different types of reds, right? Just the first red is a pure red, and the second red has more yellow or orange in it, right? The third red has, more blue. It's a bluer. It has more of the opposite color. It's a grayer red, right? The fourth red is bluer red, right? And so on. The last one is darker and grayer. The second row, they're all types of yellow, even though it verges. Some of the yellows come close to being green, and the bottom one is all types of blue. Now we can simplify this even more for ourselves, right? By taking in the secondary colors, and we can use that to our benefit. we can look at oranges, greens, and violets, right? So everything that we look at, right, can be narrowed down to these color families. If you look at my desk back here, right,
Mhm.
uh, a case can be made that's a type of orange, right?
Sure.
This table over here was a type of yellow, my easel, right? In fact, I took some pictures. I just downloaded a couple of pictures just to show my point.
So could you make the argument that any color that contains a red or a yellow is therefore a red or a yellow, or is it only if it tips closer to the yellow family? Like you have, for example, in your previous slide, you had a green that was considered a yellow and a green that was considered a blue. And is it because the amount of blue tips it to the blue side of the scale?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's definitely good. And I'm gonna talk about that even more in a second, right? But let's look at some examples over here, just that I downloaded just a few minutes ago before we started, because normally when I teach this live, and when I teach this, I'm just pointing to things in the room. But since it's harder, I mean, right? This
So
is a
virtually
type.
point for us.
What'd you say?
I said you can virtually point for us.
I
Look at
can virtually point.
the blue couch in the room.
It's a blue couch, right? It's the blue family. It's a type of blue,
Mhm.
right? Blue sky. These are blue jeans, right? And this is a different kind of blue jeans, right? The difference is that the only difference, they're still blue. The only difference is that these blue jeans are darker and redder, and these blue jeans are lighter, right? Is that fair so far, Mandy?
So
Right?
far, so good. Yeah.
The floor is easily a type of orange. It's the same colors to make this, right? Right? Type of orange. You can see the relationship and the similarity, right? And then this is another orange. The difference between this orange and this orange, I'll drive myself crazy if I think about, okay, which orange is warmer and which orange is cooler, right? But the difference between this orange and this orange is that this orange is yellower. It's a yellower orange, right? It's so much easier and actionable, which is what we need, right? This is a type of red. It's a red couch, and this is a red floor. Would you agree with me, Mandy?
I
This is
absolutely agree. Like a more
right.
neutralized red floor.
What'd you say?
I said it's a more neutralized red.
It's a more neutralized, but it's still in the red family, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right. And this is a violet family, right? And all of these are types of yellow, right? They're all in the yellow family, right? Does that make sense to everybody, right? So now that we got that out of the way, right? We're thinking about the colors, these families of color, right? And um, I didn't make up the idea that everything can really be broken down into three families. That goes to Johannes Eaton at the turn of the last century, right?
Mhm.
But everything can. But for us, it's a little bit more complicated. If we add the secondary, their children, then we can break
Children,
everything
I
down
like
into the children of the big primary families, right? The
yeah.
secondaries, right? That everything could be labeled a type of orange, a type of green, a type of violet, right? And look, if I smooth out the color wheel, right, you can see it's ambiguous where that yellow actually becomes a red, which
Mm,
leads to your question, right? It's ambiguous, right? And if we add the oranges, we can say, okay, this yellow as it goes to the right of this color wheel, right?
mhm,
It's gaining red overtones. Would you agree?
mhm.
Right?
Yes.
And
Right.
it's until it's no longer a yellow, until it's a red with yellow overtones or an orange, right? So
Mhm,
if I go to the right, this is a yellow that has reddish overtones until it becomes at some point it's ambiguous, but it becomes an orange, right? And so
So
on. As we keep going along.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Lynn QC in the chat has a question. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Lynn. Is asking the 5 questions when you paint are blue, red, yellow, lighter, or darker?
Um wait, okay. You lost me.
Sorry, I think what this person is asking is the questions that you should be asking yourself when you painting is blue, red, yellow, lighter, or darker?
Yes. So we're going to go over that because I'm going to actually give you a mixing technique so that you can put this
Ooh.
into action, right? And so the first thing you decide is the color family. Simple, right? So if it's a red, okay, or if it's an orange, like people, I'm a type of orange, right? But it's a very light orange, and in some places I got yellow overtones, some places I got redder overtones, some places the overtones are bluer,
Mhm.
right? Um, so yeah, that's the first thing you think about what the color family is, and then the value, right? Value is the most important thing because if you get the value right, you can commit crimes with the color. You can do anything you want
Color
almost with the color.
crimes, as long as you're not committing a crime against the value.
That's right. The values will keep you the ring of truth, no matter how you go, and the relationships, which we'll talk about, right? Um, uh, you know, so first thing is decide the color family, then decide the value, right? Is it lighter or darker? And then what are the overtones? Okay, it's redder, it's bluer, it's yellower. You see,
Mhm.
if I always say if I have an orange and I'm graying it out, it's got a bluer overtone, right?
Mhm.
So I'm adding blue, or we'll talk about other things. Well,
So how do you help communicate this when you're teaching? So the other day I was teaching in my online atelier painting boot camp, and we were talking about greens, and I was saying there's red in the greens. You need to find the red in the green.
yeah.
And sometimes I think people look at me as if I'm insane. So how do you
So
convince students that there is
absolutely.
red
So
in
that's a great question, and one that I will deal with too as well, right? You can't see the red and the green until you compare. You see,
the green?
until you compare, you can't see any of these colors until you compare. You cannot see that this is redder until you compare it to my forehead or to this. Max Ginsburg's father, who I knew, right, used to say, when painting the nose, look at the forehead.
Mm.
You're comparing. Painting is always a comparison.
Mhm.
Color, getting the color is a comparison. Getting the relationships within the color is a comparison, and it's important because if you are thinking in terms of this is redder than this, I
Mhm.
guarantee you everybody's monitor will have me as a different color, but this relationship will stick,
Mhm.
right? So if I decide I want to make it all lighter and more impressionistic, as long as I keep this redder than this and this darker than this and so on, I
Mhm.
have the relationship. It works. If I want to make it all darker and kind of creepy, right? As long as I got the relationship, you still get the ring of truth. If I want to push it all to the red or to the blue or make it all grayer or all more brilliant in color, right? If I
Mhm.
keep the relationship, I keep the sign of the truth, right? It's like music, right? If I have a violin playing in an orchestra and the violin is sharp, it sounds terrible. It's not relative to the music, right? But if
Mhm.
everybody else in the orchestra goes, "Oh, there's that violinist again," they start playing sharper too
Uh-huh.
to match the violinist. You see, all of a sudden it's beautiful. The mood changes a little bit, right? It's a different
That's a great
mood,
analogy.
and it's the
So
same.
it looks like in the chat here that we have other people that had Max as an art teacher in high school. So Nina
Ah,
in the chat is saying that she also had Max as a.
yeah. I was lucky enough to have Max as my high school art teacher when I was 15. So.
Could you tell us a little bit about your training? I'm always curious, like, how do people get to where they are? Did you get bopped on the head by a talent fairy, or did you have access to somebody that had this knowledge?
Well, I mean, there's a lot I've thought about a lot. I read a lot, right? But I started out painting with Max Ginsburg when I was 15, and Erwin Greenberg, who was
Greedy.
amazing. And in the class, we had Stephen Assell was an upperclassman. I mean, how lucky is that? We had who was already a genius by the time he was 11. And we had Garen Baker and Costa Vavayaska. We had tons of just amazing people in the class that we were just feeding off each other. It was a really special time. That group still goes. It was a morning group that we used to get together. Imagine this: we're high school students, and we'd arrive at school at 6 o'clock in the morning, waiting for or at 5:30, waiting for the janitor to come to open the door at 6 o'clock. And we'd go up and paint before school every day religiously. And there was this whole group of us that were doing this when we were 15. All of us got scholarships, all of us, because this is nothing like just working from life constant and then being around other people who are killing it, who are knocking it out of the ballpark,
Sure.
to seeing what they do. And so that was the greatest part of my training. And then over years, I've done atelier and all kinds of other things.
Mhm.
Parsons, I did, college, but
Mhm.
that there was a very special thing.
That is
And
very special to have access to a group of people that you can learn from and create with.
and I encourage, people out there, right, to start your own group. If you're a teacher, right, and you have a bunch of 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 uh, animated students, right, do your own group, a morning group or after school group where they just meet. Nobody has to pay or anything like that unless you chip in for the model. Like
Mhm.
over one summer between 11th and 12th grade, Stephen Assell rented a dance studio on 59th Street back when you could, right?
Mhm.
Uh, in the morning on Wednesday mornings, and we'd get together and paint the model. And each of us chipped in 50 cents, and that paid for the room and the model.
I'm so jealous of this. Also,
Different
that a
time.
high school student is organizing this,
But
that level
yes,
of painting.
we did it ourselves. We did it ourselves. And so that whole summer, I learned so much. We were all painting together for
Mhm.
50 cents a pop every Wednesday, right?
Yeah,
And it was amazing, right? But you can do that. You can do that. Just painting from life and then feeding off other people, even if you're all coming up together, is an amazing way to learn, right? It makes it fun. It adds the fun to it,
that's wonderful. Well, I
right?
can't wait to learn in a group with you today and see what you have to share with us about this color magic that you keep talking about.
Okay, let's continue, right?
Okay.
Back to this, right? Sorry, here we go. All right, so you see, right? If I go the other way with the yellow, it's yellow that's gaining blue overtones until it becomes a green, and then until it becomes a blue, and then the blue is going as it goes. It's blue that gains red overtones. If I think about it that way, right? I could also break it down into families. Now, watch what happens here, right? If I break them down like that, can you all clearly see how these are all types of yellow?
Mm.
You see, even as it gets close to that green, it's a type of yellow. And that happens if I'm painting a yellow object, there'll be parts where it's going to have the greener overtones, parts that are going to have the redder overtones. Here, these are all types of reds, all types of blue, right? Conversely, if I'm painting an orange object that's in the orange family, now look how these all feel like they're in the orange family. There's lots of overlap, right? These
Mm.
all feel like it's their orange family. These all feel like they're green. They all feel like they're in the violet family. And that's why I like to identify what the family is, because it's going to be some family with all kinds of overtones. Now, what if the overtones come from across, right? Let's see. Well, we're gonna talk about it in a second. One thing, let me just clarify some terminology for our sake, right? Because changes so much, um, right? Um, the hue is the color, is the wavelength of the color, right? A tint of the color is a lighter version of that hue, right? For whatever the base hue is, shade is a darker version, and a tone, which used to mean value, now means saturation, how gray something is or how prismatic. So these are all the same yellow, but the tone changes, right? They're all the same value. If you squint your eyes, you can see they're all the same value, right? But they are all grayer versions of the hue. So the tone tint, that's extra credit if you remember that. Right. So here we got, oops, sorry. Where was I? Here we go. Uh, so now back to the overtones, right? Let's take a look over here. Right. Back to our color wheel, right? And right, we smoothed it out. Right. Now we saw what happens if you get overtones from the neighboring. What if we go across, right? Right. If we gather color from across, if I have a orange with blue overtones, a green with red overtones, right? across. Well, what happens is, right, if you're grabbing overtones from across, we work in what they call a subtractive color mode. And basically, what that means, right, is that any two colors that you mix, the resulting color cannot be lighter than the lightest color in the mix.
True.
Cannot be lighter than the impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot be higher saturation than the most saturated color in the mix, which is why my personal palette has no I try to get the brightest colors that I can get, a pure red, a pure yellow, a pure blue, as much as I can, because it's pigment, you can, but as much as I can, pure orange, you see, so that I start with the brightest color, which gives me the biggest range. That, of course, comes with the difficulty of it's very hard to make grays, right? It's hard to learn to make grays, but I can make any color, any grays with a smaller palette if you start out with more brilliant colors, right? One of the reasons I think that the 𝗠𝘀𝗁 palette is so popular. By the way, Mandy, how do you know somebody's using a 𝗠𝘀𝗁 palette?
And very limited chroma in the blues.
No, you don't need to know. They'll tell you every chance they get, right? Right. So 𝗠𝘀𝗁 palette is so, people love a 𝗠𝘀𝗁 palette so much because it's all grays. The palette itself, look, except for the red, right? You have a gray yellow, which is a yellow ochre, a gray brown, which is either the burnt umber or burnt sienna, depends on which one you use. Black is a gray, you see, and then you have red. And so it's very easy to use because the hardest thing is making grays. And you can always gray something down, just mixing black and white together and pulling it in, right? You get a more photorealistic type of gray than if you mix with the colors. But so we work in this subtractive color space. So every color, hold on a second. I was going to share the screen, but I still got something to say before I share it, right? If I take a red and I add green to it, the resulting color is going to be darker than the lightest. If it's a lighter red or a darker red, it's going to be darker. It gets darker. And if I try to keep it the same value as the lighter color, it's going to get gray. So it'll either turn brown as it gets darker, or if I add white, it'll turn gray. Try it, right? Everybody try mixing two complementary colors together, and maybe we'll do a little bit of that, and you add white, it becomes a gray, and you can get a perfect 50-50 neutral gray with red, yellow, and blue and white, right? If you try to keep it the same value. Okay, so continuing with what we were talking about. Here we go, right? So you see, if you get overtones from across, at a certain point, you end up with the same 50% gray, right? It gets lighter. So let's now, for the sake of it, let's just look at some examples for us so that we can identify the colors, right?
Right. And just a heads up, Ricky, we have about 15 minutes left.
Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. Well, so here we have my sister-in-law, right? You can see she's a type of orange, right? And so is her hair, right? The difference is her hair is much darker, right? The difference between the orange on this side and the orange on this side, right, is that this is way more violety and this is is more muted, but you can see the difference. You can't see these colors. You can't see, let's go back. You can't see, let's forget that because we're 15 minutes. You can't see these overtones until you compare, right? So here, let's look at this color here, right? It's a very grayed out version of the skin. Compare it to here, right? To the red in here. Compare this red to the red in here. And you see this is a more orangey red. This is redder than that, right? You don't realize, let me do this. You don't realize how blue she is until you compare it to here. Which is bluer? This or this, right? That's when you see it, when you compare. If I compare this to here, this is lighter. It's also more bluer, more lavender. As it gets lower down here, right? What's the difference between this and that? Can you see how this is bluer, right? We can say cooler or whatever, but it's bluer. It's bluer. It's grabbing this color here, right? And that. So what do? I add more blue in my mix. You see, makes it so much simpler than if I drive myself crazy by asking myself, which is warmer, this or this, or cooler, or which is warmer, this red or this red, right? This is clearly the more orangey red. This is clearly the more lavender red.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Okay,
Indeed.
I'm going to skip all the other stuff and let's get right into mixing technique.
Yes, I want to see you mix colors.
Okay. Let's see how stop sharing. Here we go. Okay. So let me share this screen over here. And one of the things that I like to do, everybody, I like to treat painting, right, is a skill-based art, right? And every skill-based art has things that, what am I doing? My sharing screen. Every skill-based art has exercises that you do, right? If you are a singer, you do you do your singing scale, violinist, fingering exercises, guitarist, boxer hits a heavy bag, shadow boxes, right? I think we can use play that way and use exercises to make us better. So, you can do exercises before you start. You can do a warm up before you start painting for the day. And one of the things that I'd like to do, when I'm feeling, because you have to keep up the skills. And, sometimes I'm feeling, okay, I'm not mixing well today. Like I have tons of these things that I go to the hardware store and I get them and I put them up on my easel and I just practice matching the colors, right? So it's like a warm up. I think of it like fingering exercises for guitar or something like that, right? I had grabbed these things. I go to they close the doors every time I come near the hardware store. I grab these things, right? And I practice mixing and putting down there. And it's possible to get, even with just red, yellow, and blue, there's no color in here that you can't get, right?
Well, I have a
And
question for you about that, because I was painting a wall in my house and I was looking for a very specific color that didn't exist at the hardware store. And I was wondering, in the paint colors that you are swiping from these stores, do you see any holes in the colors, like types of color families or chromas or hues that are missing?
yeah, I haven't noticed, but I've never looked for that reason that way, right?
Hmm.
There have been times when I couldn't find the color that I wanted, because me and my friend, Garen used to work murals, and back in the olden days, we just used Benjamin Moore.
Mhm.
So I would always just mix whatever color we needed if we needed a big color for something,
Sure.
which is where I really learned how to mix. I make these on my own, right? I'll take a photo and then
Mhm.
the eyedropper, and I'll expand the image and
Mhm.
then take the eyedropper in Photoshop, right? Click in one area, take it to the side, make a selection, put it in the selection, and then I have all of these, right? And I learned this from the photorealists. And so you can copy, but I use it only for exercising. I would never do this for a painting because I want the mistakes that humans make. I wanted freedom, right? I'm not trying to copy. I'm not trying to get the color exact, right? I almost always pump up the chroma, right?
Mhm.
But you make these and you sit down and you practice, and it's amazing how quickly your eye begins to be able to see the color and mix them. It's also amazing how quickly you lose it if you don't practice. So so let's go up here. Okay. Now, can you see my other screen, Mandy? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here I have just one of these photos that I took, right? And we're gonna just mix and match a color together, right? Now there is some glare, so maybe some of the color. If it doesn't look like the color exactly, it's the glare.
Always, Ricky, always.
Right. So let's look at her, right, for a second. What color family is it? It's clearly, she could be pink, right? A red color family. She could be yellow, but she's red. Here's red and here's yellow, right? So she's in the orange family, right? And that's where I start. So let's see. I'm gonna pick something, right? I'm gonna pick this. Let's pick that, right? And I'm gonna make it. So the very first thing is, what color family is it? Right? What color family is it? It's orange. I'm not gonna use orange. I'm gonna use red and yellow because there are places where it's redder, places where it's bluer. And I'm gonna decide this area is gonna be my lights, and maybe this area is gonna be my darks, right? And I'm gonna set up a thing. So I'm gonna put down color. Notice I'm putting down a good amount of color, right? Even though I'm just giving this little swatch, right? So now here's the key to my approach to mixing. I don't put the color on top. You see, I don't plop the color on top, because if you plop the color on top and I put too much yellow, I got to go back and grab some red, and then, now it's too red. Now I have to put yellow. I have no control over the color. So however you decide to take this and make it your own, you put the colors together and then you pull them together. You see? So
Oh,
now,
interesting.
if it needs to be yellower, I just pull more yellow, let the yellow trickle in. If it needs to be redder, do you see? I let the red trickle in.
You're a genius, Ricky.
See that? Gives me ultimate control over the color, you see? And if I run out of color here, I put it here. I can always get back to my color, you see? Because I know what colors are filling this well. Okay, I'm looking at that. It's much lighter, right? Because the first thing is the color family. Second is the value. So I'm going to go for lighter. Once again, I don't put it on there. I put it here. I forgot which one I'm doing. I'm doing that one, right? I let it come in, you see? And already, even without doing it, it's beginning to look like the color. Now, here's the thing, right? You don't know what color you have until you put it down, because the color you see here is different here. Depends, because color is kind of futile. It's kind of fleeting, right? It depends on what surrounds it. Like one color, you take a gray and put it next to a green and it'll look red, and put that same gray next to a yellow and it'll look more violet. So until I put it down, I don't know what it is. So I'm going to take this color that I just mixed and I'm going to put it down on here like this, just to see what it is, right? And you see, I'm close, right? I'm in the ballpark. I have to go like this because of the glare, right? I'm in the ballpark, but I can get better, right? For painting from life's purposes, I would probably be happy with this, because the only difference is that this is grayer, right? Than this. And so I like to keep the chroma, but it's grayer, it's bluer. This is bluer than that.
So there's some appreciation for some of your words. So earlier we were talking about you can get away with color crimes with values as long as your values are accurate. So you have the value, and so you can get away with it, right?
Yes.
And we also have fugitive colors that, we don't really know what the color is until we put it down. So I really love your language of how you think about color.
Yeah, it's you have to put it down. You have to I guess, if you ever played darts, right? You throw the first dart, and then wherever it lands, you say, okay, it's too low, it's too right. So you throw the next one a little bit higher, a little bit further to the left, you see? So I'm letting that blue come in, right? The color that I mixed is already on here. I just have to make it bluer. And I put a little bit too much in because I'm using this palette. My other palette was so dirty and so what's the word? So dark that I was gonna ruin it. But all right, here we go. Right. So as I'm doing this color, whatever color it is, right? Here. No, if you can see that, right?
Well, we can't, but that probably means that you're doing it right. It
Right.
means you really
Can't
get
see what I put down is because it disappears. And so that's how you know you got the color, right? So now if I've already painted that, right? And I want to go, say up here, right? So a different part, right? I have to assess it. It's lighter. It's the same colors. It's lighter and slightly pinker. So I'm going to make the color lighter, right? And slightly pinker and see what we got, right? And you can
Just a
see.
heads up, we have about 5 minutes, Ricky.
Okay. So those are my lights, right? One more. Let's do one more. Let's do this one over here. It's clearly darker and redder. So this is the color I mixed. I got to make it darker and redder than that, but still a little bit on the gray side. So you can see that color, it disappears on the palette, right? Because it's the right color. I get it very quickly. Now, the darks, I'll do my whole puddle for that, right? The darks are always just some type of brown or some type of gray that's related to the local color to orange. So it's just red, yellow, and blue, right? Pull them together. Remember, we pull our colors together, right? And let's see, which one am I doing? I'll do this one over here. So that's kind of an orangey brown. And I pull them and I mix them together, right? Let's get some more blue, a little bit of this, a little bit more yellow. Let's see what we got. So here I got my color and I put it down and I assess, right? This is a little bit too red. This is more yellow and more blue. So let's pull in the blue. It's going to make it darker. Let's add the red, the yellow, I mean. And I put that right over, you see?
Oh, magic.
And the color, it disappears when I put it down. Now, just for one quick little technique tip, right? When I want to get the transitional tones, right? I'm just going to do it on here, right? Say I've made my dark, right? And I got my lights, right? And I want to make the transitional. You take that color and you mix it with your light together. You just pull them together and you get the in-between colors, right? Now you can put them together and add another color. Or if, for instance, here, right, I have these other colors for convenience. Say I need a little bit of magenta. I'll take that and I'll do the same thing. I'll put it there and I'll let it leak in. So whatever color that I need, right?
I'm beginning to understand how you're such a prolific painter, Ricky. These efficiencies, that you have in getting your color, nailing it pretty much the first time is really impressive.
It's amazing how quickly, since we're covering up, I was going to do more of these, but I think we all get the gist. So let me stop so that we can talk for the last few minutes, right? If there are any questions that people have in the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot of admiration for your mixing skills in the chat, but please, any questions you have for Ricky, make sure to stick them in. This is your opportunity to question this man of genius here in front of us today.
I'll know about genius, but you notice that there's nothing I can't get on that picture or this picture that I can't get with just red, yellow, and blue. Everything, I can get everything. The only problems that come in is when I have highly prismatic color, like a beautiful violet or like a cerulean blue, necktie or something. You know what I mean? That's why I have the other colors. I have a real orange, right? Because you mix red and yellow, especially this is a greenish yellow, which is what I like, so that it gives me more of a range. You're not going to get a highly prismatic orange if you need it, right? Just like I have a red.
Sorry, people really want to know which colors you have on your palette. Could you just quickly walk us through?
Yes, I do that.
Right. And also, are you still teaching at the Art Students League, Ricky?
Yes, I teach at the Art Students League, and I also teach the Florence Academy Master's Degree Program, thanks to you, Mandy. And I have an online class that I teach as well. Okay, so look, so the main colors that I use, right? So like almost all the other colors, almost anything that I can paint, I will use. I use titanium white. Oh, by the way, my colors are, there's no heavy metals in my colors, right? And I don't use solvents. I don't use any Gamsol or anything like that. I clean my brushes with linseed oil and get them all off, which is how it was done in the 17th century. And without the Gamsol, painting is no more toxic than um, watercolors. So I have titanium white, which is the only, if there was a other non-toxic color, white that works, I would use it. This is arylide yellow, and in Michael Harding, I use Michael Harding. Michael Harding calls it bright yellow lake, which is diarylide yellow. So it's not a cadmium yellow. And the beautiful thing is cadmium yellow is like $50 and diarylide yellow is under 20. I have permanent orange under Michael Harding, which is really pyrrole orange, right? So it's a beautiful bright orange, but there's no cadmium, it's no heavy metal. And that's also under $20 compared to cadmium orange, which is like $50. This one over here, this is pyrrole red, and it's a beautiful red. Here's how you spell it, pyrrole red, right? Pyrrole. And there's not a heavy metal, it's not toxic, and it's light fast 1. And look how beautiful that red is. It's a perfect red. And you can always tell your clients, pyrrole red is what I used in your painting, and that's the red they use on red Ferraris.
I love it.
Real fact. This is magenta, right? It's quinacridone red. Really is it's magenta in Michael Harding, but it's quinacridone red, which is PR122, right? So you'll see it be called quinacridone rose or. This is I used to use Viridian, but Viridian is very gray. This is phthalo green yellow shade, not phthalo green, which is phthalo green. Phthalo green by itself is just way too powerful. But phthalo green yellow shade is perfect. And I want you to see how beautiful when you mix that with the diarylide yellow. Look how beautiful that green is.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous green. And it's not a heavy metal, right? And ultramarine blue. And then I put black on for convenience. I only put it on if I'm doing a lot of area where I have to mix a black, right? I do it for convenience. It dries on my palette if I keep it on. But a lot of these colors I can mix rather than using the complements. I can just add black, right? I just want to show you guys one thing really quickly, right?
Okay, last minute, Ricky. Last minute.
Last minute. Okay, here. This is black, right? This is black, right? I'm gonna clean my brush really well so you don't think I'm pulling a fast one. Blue, red, yellow. And you see it matches the black exactly. And if I use magenta, green, and blue, I'll get a darker black than the ivory black. I don't need it. But sometimes you don't want to just keep mixing a black. It's just an annoyance. So I will use the black and still get the same color. And that's something we, maybe in an update to this, a follow-up to this, I can show you how mixing black into the color is really adding the complement. If you think about it, black as being red, yellow, and blue, like I just showed it to you, right? And if I make an orange and if I'm using red and yellow to make something the skin tone, and I add black, I'm really just adding blue, ain't I? Because there's already blue and yellow in the black. I mean, red and yellow in the black, you see? So anyway, those are enough of my crazy theories.
Okay, Ricky, one last question for you from the chat. Do you thin your paint with anything or not if you don't add Gamsol to your paint or other thinners?
I don't thin my paint at all. So it was very hard. I stopped using Gamsol because I started to get sick after all these years. I thought I was gonna have to give up painting. And everybody tells you online, oh, you can go solvent-free. Nobody tells you how to do it. They say, oh, use walnut oil, use this, right? But nobody tells you how to do it. And at first I was thinning it with linseed oil and it was a mess. It was horrible. And then I saw the unfinished show at the Whitney, and I saw that only starting with Turner and stuff, you see these washes, people blocking in with washes. Before that, it's all dry brush. You
Mm.
brought in with a dry brush, and I'm like, that made right. Then I discovered that the use of solvent was controversial and it's new, thanks to Winsor Newton, right? Like in the 1850s.
Mhm.
Before that, nobody used solvents, right? The petroleums weren't invented till later, right? And they had the spike lavender oil, but nobody really used that much, except you wiped your brush with linseed oil. If it's good enough for Rembrandt, it's good enough for Vermeer, good enough for Velasquez, it's good enough for me. And
Oh, right. On
changed
that note, I'm afraid, Ricky, I have to end today's show. But what a great end. If it's good enough for Vermeer, it's good enough for me. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Please make sure to visit Ricky's website at 𝗥𝗶𝘁𝗵.com. That's MUJICA, 𝗥𝗶𝘁𝗵.com, and Instagram at 𝗥𝗶𝘁𝗵𝗆�artist. And today I have a gift for you. You can download the free video, 97 Incredible Art Secrets. Go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. And also, do not forget to sign up for Acrylic Live. It's March 26th through 28th, 2025, with Essential Techniques Day on March 25th. 4 days of premium instruction in acrylic painting with instructors like Charlie Easton, Kevin McPherson, Ann Blair Brown, Carla Bosch, Jed Dorsey, and many more. So you can sign up at acryliclive.com/ASL. And of course, if you haven't signed up yet for the Plein Air Convention and Expo, it is time to do so. The prices go up on Valentine's Day. PACE is on May 19th through 25th, and you don't want to miss it. Sign up at pleinairconvention.com/ASL. And please don't forget to subscribe and like this channel at Art School Live on YouTube and at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. Again, my name's Mandy Tice. I'm substituting for Eric Rhodes this week while he's away on his adventures. You can see my work at 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵𝗆�arts.com. You can check out my online atelier that I run there, and you can follow me on social media at Mandy Fine Artist. So that's all for today, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you tomorrow.